Hey, this is some guy named Chris. First off, I was told yesterday, and I want to thank everybody. Today is the 1 year anniversary of some guy named Chris coming online. Gone through a lot. I know it's been a while since I've posted, but I want to thank everybody who has watched the videos. So today, I want to go over something that we at Opal have started to implement in multiple ways, but it's Connectwise Invoicing into Dynamics Business Central. I know there's some tools out there, and we're actually in the process of building one inside of Business Central as well. But in the meantime, we needed to move our data from Connectwise into Dynamics Business Central. We just recently switched from Dynamics GP. So what I want to show you today is a high-level overview of what we've done and the next steps of where we're going. So let me share out my screen and get you high-level information. So if you guys have seen Connectwise, you know in the setup, and you've set up the accounting between, let's say, Connectwise and another ERP, Connectwise by default has a few different options here. GP, other, QuickBooks, and as you look at these, there's no Business Central. So what do? Well, you know me, I've done this enough time on here. I like connectors, I like Power Automate. So I was tasked with trying to figure out a way of getting stuff out of Business Central into, have Connectwise into Business Central. So started looking around. We currently use we did use Dynamics GP, and I learned over time that something like this accounting interface, now this is talking with our accounting team, they would export the data, and depending on the flag over here, if it was a direct transfer, it would automatically get moved over, pushed back. Right now, we can't do all of that. I learned that the APIs within Connectwise, I can't actually indicate that it was successfully pushed. It's just not available at this point. But there's other things that we can do. So what I learned, and I'll share out the APIs, by doing some research and some tests, the big thing that our accounting team needed were the unposted invoices here. Once these unposted invoices, I could see them, inside of each unposted invoice, we have the accounting breakdown, and this is all being pulled and set up in Connectwise. So by getting the accounting breakdown, I then had the information that could be transferred into Business Central. There's a couple caveats and some dimensions and stuff, but I'll show you that in a minute. But this is at least the start. So what I ended up doing was looking for the APIs, and sure enough, in a very good thing, we've got a couple APIs here. So accounting unposted invoices. This is exactly what's showing in this listing, filtered based on something. Then once you have the unposted invoices, there's the accounting packages, accounting batches that allow you to do exports. So I can grab all the unposted invoices, in a way, select the ones that I want, and then run them through the accounting export. Accounting export gives me all the information that I need to be able to import the data into Business Central. Again, this is a high level, but this is how I was able to work on this. So what I want to show you now is just the flow. Right now, as you can see, it's a manual trigger. We set a lot of variables in here, and I'll tell you about an issue that we had setting variables. But manual trigger right now, I look at it down the line. We can use webhooks, the callbacks, which there is one for invoicing. So when the invoice is created inside of Connectwise, automatically send it into Power Automate. Other options, run it daily for that day. Maybe run it at 12:01 for the day before. Any of those things can really work. Right now, this was, again, a proof of concept test that really worked well and was able to be built in a matter of, I say, a day, versus an actual tool that we are building in Business Central that will then connect to Connectwise, but it's going to be a lot more time. But it's going to be a pretty cool, awesome tool. So I'm excited for that. So setting a bunch of variables, the date, this is important. This is what I'm specifying for the unposted invoices. You could do a date range here. I'm just doing a specific date. You'll even see I have a begin and end date that is truly just this date, going to the end of the day. And then the same thing at the beginning of the day. Batch number, doc type, account. We'll get to this in a second, but there's the full account number. Then we're going to pull out the account dimension 1, dimension 2. In Business Central, you talk about dimensions for your chart of accounts. So if you have more than one, you'd have to add it. Quantity, unit price. Does the invoice exist? Something that I didn't actually implement, running into issues. But what we want to check at is, does the invoice actually exist? If it does, don't add it again. Otherwise, it will error out. So do a couple conditional logics. But when we start, as we talked about, getting the accounting unposted invoices, this is where we want to send in our information, the URL, and there. So calling the API with the date begin, the date end, and I'm doing a page size of 1,000. If you don't do the page size, it comes back with the 25. So we're trying to very narrow it down. If you've got more than 1,000, you're going to have to do a loop. But simple as that, call, grab the data. I like to parse it. You don't have to, but always parse the JSON makes it easier. Then our staff, at one point, we need to limit to non-credit memos, something we didn't want to implement initially, but now we're going to. It's just a matter of getting in there, but I excluded credit memos. Now, again, this is where it becomes a little odd. And the unposted invoices gives you the invoice number, but more importantly, it gives you the invoice ID. The invoice ID is actually what's utilized when sending it through the export here. So if we look at this, it says include invoice IDs. Doesn't say include invoice numbers. So be aware that this has to be the invoice ID. To get that, I was able to call it was in the unposted invoices. Just make sure you're getting the ID versus the number. Once you have all of that, I actually compose all the IDs. So I set up a variable, and we're composing this variable. Actually, it's right here. Sorry. When we're looping through each of these unposted IDs, I am appending to this invoice ID variable. It's the billing log ID is the ID, but I'm appending to it because I want everything in the field with comma separated, so that I can then compose it. I can build out the JSON, and you can see here's my invoice IDs, and this should look familiar. It's just this, but building out the JSON body so that when I send it through posting account batches, I can get back the information. So that all just Connectwise. Normally I'd use a connector, but using the HTTP was a little bit easier. Didn't have to worry about building the connector and all of that. And I have a whole video on connector versus HTTP. So if you want to check that out, it goes into detail why one versus the other. Once I have all of the batch exports for each invoice. I then start going through and looping. So you'll see here that the return gives me the header information. So I can create the header. I can then create the lines. So for each is the header, this one gives through each header, this goes through each line. This condition here, I am checking to make sure that my GL type isn't sales tax. For us, the sales tax is being calculated in BC. So I don't want to include sales tax, even though it Connectwise does bring it to me, give it to me. In here, setting the variables, and then updating the lines. Now you'll see here that I set the dimensions, ran into an issue that inside of the create lines, I do see the dimensions. Actually, let me rephrase that. In the connector, and I'm going to change my tune. In the Business Central connector, there is something where you can set the dimensions. It's called set dimension lines. It was not working. I don't know why. Did some Google searching and other people have had issues. So this was not working within the Business Central connector. So for that, I ended up having to do a full post to the Business Central API. This worked very well, but it does take adding a different type of connection, again, HTTP, that we've used above, but I wish the connector would have worked, would have been a lot better in my eyes, but it happens. So did it a little differently, but in the end, overall, the information is now being transferred. I'm able to set the date, pull the information, transfer it over. Some of the things that we're going to do in the future, post back to Connectwise to say whether it's paid or not. We obviously have to do some kind of figure out, again, not the accounting guy. I have to get my accounting team to tell me when it's technically been paid in Business Central, so I see it. Hopefully there is a web call or callback or a webhook, combine those two. And then we can call back and push back to Connectwise. Otherwise, we'll have to figure something else out. I think I mentioned earlier, the manual triggers, we can automate that. We're looking at this as a short-term, a very good short-term solution because it was done so quick, but the long-term is our new tool that we are building that's going to be in Business Central, nice, sleek, everything in there where you can pull the same unposted invoices, select which ones you want, post them, air tracking, the whole 9 yards. Again, this only does invoices. I know when we look at Connectwise, there's also unposted expenses, unposted procurement. So we can build on that, but for now, at a simple high level, getting invoices from Connectwise into Business Central, this solved it. If you have any questions, you have any comments, post them down below. If you like this, it helps, subscribe. But hey, this has been some guy named Chris. Again, thank you. 1 year anniversary. Have a great day.